Hey guys, how is it going? This is Yamamoto. In this video, I'd like to talk about something very serious that's happening in my country, Brazil. A country with so many social and economical problems, but whose political and judicial leaders fight for power while its own population struggles financially and lives 24 hours at the mercy of the crime. Afraid to go out to the street, work, study, and forced to lock themselves inside their homes every day. A country with an average of 42,000 homicides per year, a rate higher than all these blue countries on the world map combined. Yes, that's right. But for the government, or especially for the highest echelon of the Brazilian justice system, the Supreme Federal Court, the most important thing is to fight their political adversaries, or those who dare to speak ill of the conduct of its ministers. They who consider themselves practically semi-gods on earth, but who aren't even elected by the Brazilian population, but rather appointed by a president and subsequently vetted by the Federal Senate. In this game, today Brazil has nothing more, nothing less than 11 ministers of the Supreme Federal Court, people appointed by Brazilian presidents, in which 7 of them were appointed by Lula and Dilma Rousseff from the Workers' Party left wing, first elected in 2002 and supposedly re-elected in 2022 in a runoff against former President Bolsonaro from the Liberal Party right wing. Yes, that's right. 7 of our 11 ministers of the Supreme Federal Court were elected by one single party. That's to say, 7 of the 11 ministers of the Brazilian Supreme Court were appointed by 2 left-wing presidents in Brazil. But anyway, in this video, we will basically talk about one single minister of the Supreme Federal Court, or rather, the current president of the Supreme Federal Court, Alexandre de Moraes, or for some, Xandão. This bald guy, who looks more like Krillin from Dragon Ball, an almost supreme being who feels entitled to persecute, imprison, and exile his own people abroad. Alexandre de Moraes is a Brazilian jurist and politician known for his trajectory both in academia and the public sphere. He was born in São Paulo in 1968. Alexandre de Moraes is a member of the Brazilian Social Democracy Party, PSDB, which is considered left-wing in Brazilian political spectrum. The PSDB had a long-standing rivalry with the Workers' Party, PT, led by President Lula, alternating power over 22 years since 1994. Moraes has had an active political career, serving as a Secretary of Public Security of the state of São Paulo and Minister of the Justice in Michel Temer's government. Temer assumed the presidency in 2016 following Dilma Rousseff's impeachment and led the country until the 2018 elections. In 2017, Alexandre de Moraes was nominated by the then president Michel Temer to occupy a seat on the Supreme Federal Court, STF, Brazil's highest court, succeeding Theodore Zavascki. His appointment sparked controversy due to being dominated by the president who preceded him and his political proximity to the government at that time. Elected to the presidency by the court's own members for a 2-year term, as determined by the Brazilian Federal Constitution, Minister Alexandre de Moraes became known for his role in significant cases, many of which involved sensitive and controversial issues, such as freedom of expression, individual rights, and public policies. As a minister of the Supreme Federal Court, STF of Brazil, Alexandre de Moraes is frequently involved in various controversies related to freedom of expression and individuals' rights. Here are some of them. The Fake News Inquiry. The Fake News Inquiry was an investigation conducted by the Supreme Federal Court, STF of Brazil, to investigate the dissemination of fake news, attacks, and alleged threats against court ministers and their families. The investigation was initiated in March of 2019 by the then president of the STF, Minister Dias Toffoli, and had Minister Alexandre de Moraes as its rapporteur. The inquiry generated controversy from the outset due to its atypical origin and the breadth of its investigation. Unlike conventional crime organizations which are opened by the Public Prosecutor's Office, the fake news inquiry was instituted ex officio by the STF itself, raising questions about its legality and constitutionality. During the course of the inquiry, various measures were taken, such as the breaking of bank and tax secrecy, search and seizure of documents and electronic devices, and the blocking of social media accounts. Some of the targets of the investigation included politicians, businessmen, bloggers, and even digital influencers, among them Alan dos Santos, a blogger and YouTuber known for his political aligned posts and videos often associated with the right wing in Brazil. He was subject to measures such as search and seizure of documents and electronic devices during the course of the inquiry and had to exile himself in the United States, where he is still subject to constant legal maneuvers by the Brazilian Judiciary, which seeks his extradition back to Brazil. Recently, the US government announced that it will not extradite the blogger Alan dos Santos, accused of slander and defamation by the Brazilian justice system. In the US, these alleged offenses are considered crimes of opinion and do not serve as a basis for extradition request, as they are protected by the right to freedom of expression. Bernardo Kister, a journalist and Catholic YouTuber known for his religious and political videos. He was also subject to measures such as search and seizure at his residence as part of the investigation related to the fake news inquiry. Censorship of news reports. In March 2018, Alexandre de Moraes ordered the censorship of news reports mentioning the former Senate President Renan Calheiros in an investigation related to bribes from the construction company Odebrecht. Moraes argued that the reports contained false and offensive information, but the decision was criticized by journalists who saw it as an act of prior censorship. Blocking of Telegram. In 2021, Alexandre de Moraes ordered the temporary blocking of the Telegram messaging app throughout Brazil as part of an investigation into the dissemination of fake news. This decision sparked debate about the proportionality of the measure and raised concerns about citizens' freedom of communication and right to privacy. In this context, we reach April 2024. The current controversy has been related to the Brazilian Supreme Federal Court against Elon Musk, the visionary entrepreneur behind companies like SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and X, who often finds himself at the center of debates about freedom of expression. Elon Musk has been an active voice on social media, even before acquiring Twitter and rebranding it into X, being critical of censorship and banning of users by Twitter, especially when these actions are perceived as arbitrary and politically motivated. He has argued that freedom of expression is a fundamental principle and that social media platforms should allow a wide range of opinions, even those they may disagree with. After a major overhaul at X, Elon Musk has been active in defending the freedom of expression of users on his digital platform. And recently, X unbanned all Brazilian accounts on its platforms that were restricted by court order, sparking the anger of Alexandre de Moraes, threats, and a direct confrontation against Elon Musk. Yes, that's right, the bald man now thinks he's Saitama and he can stand up to whoever he wants. This decision by X comes after the so-called X files, the revelation of a series of documents showing that outside of due legal process, X employees were persecuted and there was illegal mapping of accounts on X that were not under formal investigation by the Federal Police or the Public Prosecutor's Office, and that the Brazilian Supreme Federal Court was forcing X to provide illegal information about users who were commenting or raising hashtags considered offensive. Elon Musk himself has been an active voice through X, making clear the seriousness of what has been happening in Brazil. This aggressive censorship appears to violate the law and will of the Brazilian people. We are lifting all restrictions. This judge imposed very high fines, threatened to arrest our employees, and to cut off access to X in Brazil. As a result, we will likely lose all revenue in Brazil and have to close our office there. But principles are more important than profit. Yes, my friends, he said he prefers to remove X from Brazil than to yield to pressures of Alexandre de Moraes. On its own account, X expressed it. X has been forced by court decisions to block some popular accounts in Brazil. We informed these accounts that we took this action. We do not know the reasons for these blocks and why these orders were given. We do not know which posts are illegally breaking the law. We are prohibited from saying which court or judge used the order and what their grounds were. We are prohibited from saying which accounts are affected. We are being threatened by daily fines if we do not comply. We believe these orders are not in line with the civil framework of the Internet, which regulates freedom of expression on the Internet in Brazil, nor with the Federal Constitution of Brazil, and we challenge the orders legally. The population of Brazil, regardless of their political positions, has the right to freedom of expression due to process and transparency from their own authorities. Let's now see the reaction of some Brazilian politicians. Lula's minister Jorge Messias, or for some, Bessias, from the Attorney General Office. It's urgent to regulate social media. We cannot live in a society where billionaires residing abroad have control over social media networks and put themselves in a position to violate the rule of law, disobeying court orders and threatening our authorities. Social peace is non-negotiable, said the minister who handed a term of office to Lula, allowing him to assume the position of chief of staff in Dilma's government and not be arrested during the investigations against the then former president in 2016. And he was prevented by the judiciary for being considered a ruse by Lula and his allies to avoid imprisonment, as this would grant him parliamentary immunity during his term. And if that wasn't enough, now the soap opera has been taken an even more comical and tragic turn. Yes, Mr. Alexandre de Moraes really thinks he's Saitama, because, believe it or not, just like Alan dos Santos, Bernardo Kister, among others, he has also decided to include Elon Musk in the previously mentioned fake news report. Yeah, he did it. Well, he alleged that Elon Musk would be allowing and instrumentalizing X as a tool to abolish the democratic rule of law, committing a crime, and with strong indications of criminal organization. Yes, criminal organization. Criminal organization. On the other side, Elon Musk escalated the situation, calling for the impeachment of Voldemort. The Honorable Minister of the Brazilian Supreme Federal Court, Saitama de Moraes. Mockingly, he said he would teach the Brazilian people how to use a VPN, and the measures demanded are draconian and have no parallel in any other country in the world, still mocking, comparing him to a Brazilian Darth Vader. So, as you guys can see now, the situation in Brazil is pretty bad. And we are lucky to see someone standing against the abuse of the Brazilian Supreme Court. If our own Brazilian Senate are composed by cowards, well, at least we can see someone who has power and facing the system. And on the other hand, it's pretty sad to see that someone who's standing for us is not even a Brazilian, while our own people are being persecuted by our leaders. Well, if I have something to say, I would say thank you very much, Elon Musk, for showing us we need to face them. Not alone, and I believe people from all around the world, they are supporting us, supporting the freedom in Brazil, supporting the right of speech, because we Brazilians can't be censored by those who have the power to do it. So for ending this video, I would just say, pray for Brazil, please God save us, from Alexandre de Moraes. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on other social medias. As you guys can see, things in Brazil are pretty bad, and at any time my YouTube channel can be blocked in Brazil by Alexandre de Moraes. So the only safe place possible is on X. Thank you very much, and I see you in the next video.